What's up gamers, Coach Brandon here. Welcome to the start of the Fall 23 season. Today we'll be going over itemization and how to fully understanding items in League is not only essential, but critical to your success. With the start of the new season, make sure you're checking in on the Discord to keep up to date with all the events and new things we have coming for you guys. Alright, let's get into the video. To warm up, you should pick a champ that you want to play and take them into the practice tool. In the practice tool, you want to use a few different item combinations and just mess around with them for 5 minutes on waves or practice dummies. Doing this will make sure that you know what each of the items do on your champion, and you want to be able to play and understand what situations you may want to buy certain items in your actual games. First, you should get comfortable with the standard build of your champion. You can do this by loading to a bot game or an unranked match and follow the recommended page, or by looking at different guides online. I personally use u.dg, but that is personal preference, and any of the guides that you find should be good enough for this section. Getting comfortable with the standard build for your champion is important because it helps you understand what your champ is good at and what items will help amplify your role in the game. For example, if you're playing Sylas jungle, the standard build is Night Harvester into Shadow Flame into Zhonya's. This is because these items help Sylas go in and do a lot of damage and then save himself with his stopwatch, allowing him to get his important cooldowns back. You want to remember that the standard build, because these items are what you will be building roughly 80 to 90% of the time. Once you understand the standard build, it's time to discuss specific scenario itemization, and what I like to call offensive and defensive itemization. We'll start with defensive itemization, since this is the more likely variation that you'll be using. Defensive itemization is when you go for more defensive items instead of what you would build normally. An example of this is if you're playing Nocturne and you build second item Anathema's Chains instead of the standard second item Black Cleaver. You want to do this in situations where you yourself are behind, but your team is ahead, or you have built yourself a lead and there's only one fed enemy champion. This specific defensive build will help you stay alive if you're behind, or help prevent you from giving away easy shutdown gold to your enemies if you're ahead. Looking for situations where building defensive items is important to winning games, and you only want to build defensive items if it does not hurt your damage, either because you are so far ahead that you deal massive damage due to item leads or level leads, or you're so far behind that your damage is irrelevant even if you build your standard items. Now let's talk about offensive itemization. Offensive itemization is instead of building standard tankier items, you go for more aggressive items in your build. This is most used on tanks such as Zac or Maokai, as they can easily sub in an item like Demonic Embrace for one of their tank items to skyrocket their damage. You only want to build offensively if you have a strong early game lead, as building offensive items make you squishier and easier to punish and kill. If you get a few easy kills on a tank champ, you should look to take advantage of this and build aggressively to punish your opponents and snowball the game out of control, where you're so far ahead that your opponents don't have the items to kill you in your squishier state. Once you get comfortable with your champ's standard build, you should start to learn what your champ's strengths are and what their weaknesses are. With this knowledge, you can then create build variations that are based on your playstyle or if you're playing a strange enemy team comp. This differentiates from defensive and offensive itemization because in those builds, you always keep your champ's core items, Mythic and Boots. But for these variation builds, we are swapping the Mythic items and sometimes the Boots. A good example of this is playing Yone, and instead of building the standard Infinity Edge Mythic, you build Jock Show instead, and then build into your crit items afterwards. This variation of a Yone build makes you extremely tanky without sacrificing much damage. There are builds like this for every champion, and I recommend going into an unranked match and trying some variation builds of your own, and just having fun with it, as this is what I consider to be one of the more fun parts of League. aka theory crafting fun builds that aren't really meta, but are effective and fun to use. I highly recommend it. Again, I'm Coach Brandon, and today we went over different itemization options in League. We host tournaments once a month for free, and another time once a month for Game Gym app members, so make sure you're working on these workouts and keep grinding, and maybe I'll see your name pop up in our events page on the Discord as a victor. Until next time, make sure to stay hungry and stay humble. I'll see you next time.